Welcome, everyone, and sorry about the technical difficulties. We will close our closed session that we had and begin with item number 2 for the minutes. Brian?
Yeah, this is memorandum 2124 and a separate memorandum 2129. We'll take them in order. 24 is the minutes for the April meeting.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Staff has suggested changes.
Yeah, let Brian say what's on there just for the record, though. I appreciate it, Brian.
Oh, I thought we were taking him in series.
No, I appreciate it. Go ahead, Brian. Do you want to?
So that's it. There's been a motion and a second on the minutes for April, so we need a decision on whether to approve those.
Okay, they're approved.
Okay, I'm not seeing any no's or abstentions. Good, thank you. And then I will let Barbara present the supplement.
Okay, so the supplement is.
So it's not a supplement, I'm sorry, it's memo.
Oh, yeah, right.
29.
This memo relates to the minutes for November, which have already been approved. But in working on memos for this meeting, I noticed that they contain a mistake. They refer to the wrong memo number in 3 places. And we would ask the commission to approve a correction of those minutes, and then we will be able to implement that correction if the commission approves it.
So moved.
Okay, and then if I can just say, and I this is just because I know I'm on my way out, so just sometimes we can catch like errors like this when we take a little time to go ahead and review the minutes as a group, and I appreciate us moving forward for expediency's purposes, but it's or brevity, but it's we need to take time to sometimes review things in a group, and it just helps to bounce ideas off of each other's, just get a second set of eyes. All right, thanks. I think they've been approved though, Barbara, so
Okay,
thank you.
All right,
The next item is number 3, administrative matters.
and I believe that starts with my oral report. So one point I wanted to make has to do with today's agenda. The item number 7, the toxic statutes recodification, was removed. And this was partly the memos we were anticipating taking up were done, but they were very large and they were done fairly close to this meeting date, and it didn't feel like it would be beneficial or a good process to release those for consideration without a realistic amount of time to look at them. So I am considering the possibility of putting those on for July, but I wanted to raise another possibility, which is that our staff attorney, who's been doing the staff work on this and who knows it inside and out, is on a leave of absence right now. And we also are going to be wrapping up a recommendation soon on the first portion of the work that we're doing here, which is chapter 6.8, I believe, of the statutes that we were directed to look at. So she did chapter 6.8 first. We had a TR, we're waiting for comments on the TR, we're going to approve a recommendation. That work can continue. I can staff that with no difficulty. And then we will, if all goes well, we'll have a proposal to introduce in the legislature next year. And I think it might be helpful to temporarily table the work on the other large portion of this study, chapter 6.5. We're well into that already, but it is really large, so there's a lot more work and it's very technical. And if I were to work on that in Kristen Berfer's absence, I would need to spend a lot of time recreating her knowledge. I would not be working on other projects. And also I think, frankly, that it might be good to get a read from the legislature and the Department of Toxic Substance Control on their appetite for recodification of the type that's in the first proposal before we spend a lot more time building the second proposal. Yes, Barbara?
I think actually the status is, Brian, that the recodification of 6.8 is already complete.
That was
And there-
final?
there
Okay.
are preprints on the commission's website.
Even better. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that another possibility would be to temporarily discontinue work on 6.5 until we see how 6.8 is received by the legislature. Does
So
anyone
so
have a-
moved. Or I would move for that, yeah. Anyone want to second it? Okay, Richard does.
any
Okay.
contrary views or abstentions? Okay.
You know what, Brian, maybe we revisit it in December, just to see.
Yeah, I mean, when we do the new topics memo, we can, yeah, and Ms. Burford should be back by then, and we can think about it in that context. I also wanted to introduce, I hope she was expecting to be seen, Alexandra Azad, who I have made a panelist. And Alex is working for us this summer. She's a UC Davis Law School student. She is the funding for her position is from the donation that the former executive director Nat Sterling made. He has made a series of generous donations to King Hall Law School, where he is an alum, that are earmarked for funding student employment with the commission. And Alex was recruited under that program, and she's been doing really helpful work. You know, we're looking at the prospect of our resolution of authority being approved with new authority to study temporary emergency laws in general. And I have asked Alex to prepare sort of a survey of what COVID-related legislation was proposed and enacted in California, which is almost done,
Good.
and then expand out from that to look at what the other large states did, which, assuming we get authorization to work on the topic of emergency responses, we could use that as a resource to see what other jurisdictions have come up with, and also to see ideas that failed, so that we can decide whether or not we want to spend our resources on something that hasn't been successful. So
Really?
she's making great progress on that, and it's something that I hope we'll be able to present in a meeting or two.
Great. Well,
Awesome. Welcome, Alexander.
So thank you.
We see your smiling face, good.
So
And you're
Alex,
smiling, so that's good. That means that the work is good, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's good.
definitely. Super interesting.
Very good.
Alex,
How long have you been here with, or how long have you been working with us?
I
Just
think
for the-
since May.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Good.
I'm
Well,
going to move you back into the audience if I can figure that out. Here you go. Bye, Alex.
Bye, Alex.
There you are. And then the last thing in the executive director's report that I wanted to mention is that the Committee on Revision of the Penal Code has a slightly different model that they use for their meetings. They are more centered around invited expert witnesses on the topic of the day. And the Zoom format has been really helpful for them in inviting the participation of experts from everywhere. So they don't have to be people who are within easy travel and distance of the state capitol to participate. And so they have been thinking ahead about the prospect of the Capitol reopening and us being, you know, maybe the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act restriction on teleconference being lifted, the governor's executive order timing out. And so they're thinking ahead to how could they have in-person meetings, but include a teleconference component. And so we're going to try something, I believe. We're buying some equipment to try something that I just wanted to mention in case the commission has interest in trying something similar once we're in the same boat. Like I said, I think the the nature of their meetings is different enough that it may not make sense. But what we're hoping to do is have a cellular hotspot router, so we wouldn't have to rely on local Wi-Fi. And then each member of the committee would have an iPad on a stand in front of them, which would connect to the Zoom meeting. And the Zoom session would be where outside witnesses could come in as panelists and make presentations. So it would be an in-person meeting on a dais like any other, except that you'd have a screen in front of you that you could look down at when the witnesses are presenting. And they would be able to see us too, just like we're all arrayed here in this gallery right now. It wouldn't be quite as nice for people who sit in the audience in person, because they
Yeah.
wouldn't have that view. But if you're in a room that's wired for sound, they'd at least be able to hear the presenter's audio. So like I said, I think it makes more sense for them, and it's going to be an experiment. But I wanted to keep you abreast of that, because the commission's equipment is the commission's equipment. So if they're not using it for one of their meetings, it would be available for us to use at one of ours. So just think about that. And once we've actually transitioned a little bit more to in-person and they've had some experience with it, or if you think of the use for a dozen or so iPads in our meetings that I'm not contemplating, let me know that too, because the equipment will be idle except when we're using it. Yes, Commissioner Creel, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I'm super excited that folks are taking a look at this. I think it's a terrific idea. I'm to the extent that it's relevant, I'm strongly in favor of it. I just had one sort of technical point to raise. Have you given any thought to projecting rather than using individual iPads? You only need one piece of equipment and everybody can see it at the same time because it's thrown up on the wall.
Yeah, I did think about that. That was our initial idea, was to, if we're not using devices in front of us with a camera, then we have to have some kind of central camera.
Right. And Zoom does make cameras like that. They're designed for large conference rooms so that, so everybody's in the same box instead of, 10 little pizza boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, there are wide cameras, there are smart cameras.
Right.
The difficulty that I saw is that, one, I'm not sure they're quite designed for a dais type arrangement. The ones I saw were all more oriented towards traditional conference rooms. The other thing is just the sort of clutter. If you have a camera cabled into a device, cabled into a projector, and then a screen, that's a lot of gear to have down in the well where the witnesses are going to be. And then you'd also have to just think about the geometry of the room and how to set it up so everyone can see. And we sort of thought that the separate devices might be less intrusive and less prone to people bumping into them. Commissioner Kubas?
Yes, so I'm curious, how does that impact our commission? Are we going to be going back live in person in Sacramento soon?
I have not been told by the governor's office what their plans are for lifting the executive order that enables us to do this.
I read in the news that executive order is planned to sunset in September.
September.
Yeah, and it
Karen,
was, I think it was in the Chronicle.
Kara, have you heard anything?
No, I have not.
It's part of a slate of other executive orders that are all sunsetting at the same time. So like all of the emergency executive orders are currently in tranches that are sunsetting, in series, and the one that affects public meeting laws is in one of those tranches, and they're all going to expire in September.
Okay,
That's
good.
what I read in the news.
Thank you. I'll check in. I've been waiting to get some kind of notification, but if that's being talked about, I'll look and ask, because it's going to happen eventually. And the problem that the Bagley-Keene Act poses to us is that it makes it hard for commissioners to be in more than one place. We could still have witnesses and audiences all over the place. That's not a problem. It's the members of the body who, if they participate by teleconference in a remote location, that triggers the requirement of a separate agendized notice of that location and that it be held open to the public. So be nice if they removed that, but I don't know. Richard?
Yeah, and not to be at all contrarian, this is an interesting conversation related to it. Is there any evidence that there are people interested in maintaining the revised version of how we meet? Which is to say, and I don't know if that's true or not, but obviously it's occurring in many other businesses with a lot of favorability for doing so. Is there any indication that there is a view in Sacramento, perhaps even on this commission, that perhaps what we're doing now might be alternatively used in conjunction with the idea of meeting in person and some of the time and not all of the time? And I only ask that because there is a certain convenience to this, and maybe others don't feel that way, but I do, which requires us, doesn't no longer makes it necessary to get airplane tickets for some of you. I don't have to get in my car. Things like that can be said. We are able now to interpersonally meet one another very easily and very, I think, very compatibly. But anyway, I'm just raising that point because not that I'm advocating it, but I just wonder if there's any thoughts about that.
I second that.
I thought that might be extended simply from a cost perspective, because it's certainly more cost effective for us to do it this way instead of
Yeah.
having to reimburse members for mileage and for plane fare. And so, I would thought possibly from a budgetary consideration, they might consider making it available to us beyond the executive order.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
won't surprise
it's
me.
great for me. I don't
Yeah.
care.
I mean, that the committee on revision of the penal code is interested in this because it facilitates their process. It makes the meetings more effective, and not just from the point of view of the witnesses. They are a body that's doing work that's of keen interest to many people. It's a high profile topic. And so they typically have 100 people in their audiences. I doubt they would have 100 people in their audiences if we were in a committee room in the Capitol, because they're pulling people from all over the state. And many of those people, I think, are lack the resources to go flying to Sacramento every time there's a meeting they want to listen to. And then the other thing worth noting is that, we have this bill pending that will allow common interest developments to do this during emergencies. And the interest groups that are involved in common interest development management have been testifying in support of the bill, and they're reporting that their participation rate at HOA board meetings is through the roof. They're seeing like a doubling of member attendance at those meetings. And that makes a lot of sense. A lot of those places are senior communities and people have limited mobility. If you can sit and watch it on your TV or your device, that's a lot easier than going and sitting in a folding chair in a room for 3 hours. Yes, Commissioner Creel?
Yeah, it occurs to me, this is the kind of thing that somebody should study. Wait, aren't we the people who study these kind of things? But I suspect you'll say that it's, except for the possible emergency use of it, things like this are outside of our currently authorized study area. But given that, what seems like the consensus and certainly the practical experience that everybody's had for the last year, do you think it's worth, at least asking around the legislature to see if there's any flexibility in potentially somebody carrying an amendment to Bagley-Keene, to at least allow for, a side saddle or option for a remote meeting?
Yeah, I would be supportive of what Commissioner Creel is saying, just for the purpose of getting that information back to us so we can look at it and see what comes out of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, if the legislature gets enough feedback from various places that there's interest in this, it could become a thing.
You guys, I don't see any reason why we couldn't make a motion to extend our meetings at least through the end of the year this way, because and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but we have the authority to do that. There is the health aspect too, because at least for employment, people are having to prove if they're fully vaccinated. And so I suspect, because that's what I'm seeing on the employment side, employees are not prepared to return to work by July 30th, which is what the state kind of had envisioned would be like, the time that everyone would be, at least the majority of us would be vaccinated, and it's not happening. So to meet in person would also create an issue of health exposure for anyone that was, coming in and out and on the planes and traveling. Richard?
Yeah, I'm very much in concurrence with what you're saying, Crystal. We don't know yet what the ramifications of the later stages of this COVID thing look like. We really don't know yet. And there are people who are not as responsible as we are, who are not getting fully vaccinated. I know personally that's the case. So we don't know who we're going to be in contact with actually when we go forward, meeting with people in Sacramento, which we will do, or wherever we go.
Or traveling. Yeah, for you especially. I'm just thinking, because there is a health issue. And even if you feel and you look great, it's still, I can't imagine why you would be ready to go, in a month or two. It doesn't make sense.
So if there's no reason not to, I'll truncate this discussion by making the motion that we do as you suggested, continue meeting this way until the end of the year, and then revisit the issue and determine what we want to do. That would be.
I like that. I think especially, Brian, with Kristen being on a bit of a sabbatical, I think this makes sense.
Well, before I see Rick Simpson's hand, but just very briefly, if the executive order waiving the in-person rules for Bagley Keene expires, holding a meeting like this will be unlawful.
I think we can proceed on a tentative basis. So Richard, I would amend or make a friendly amendment to the motion that would say we would proceed like this unless an executive or other law or ordinance requires us to do differently.
I'll accept that amendment.
All those in favor, say
So
aye.
continue in this manner unless it becomes unlawful.
Fine, no problem.
Looks like there's a, yeah.
Can we call for for a vote on the motion?
No, yeah, sure. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Anyone opposing?
Okay,
The motion carries.
Thank you.
all right. That's all I have for the executive director's report.
All right. Item number 4, the legislative program. Brian?
Yeah. Excuse me. Legislative program's going well. The memo that we distributed, 2125, has a chart that shows the status as of the time that memo was distributed. There are a couple of updates that I can give, which is that SB 391 MIN, that's the CID teleconference meeting bill, that was approved by the Assembly Judiciary Committee.
Brian, I apologize for interrupting. Can we go backwards for just a second? I found something relatively authoritative that says that the governor's order N2920, which permits remote public meetings, is still in effect now, obviously, but it's as of yet the governor has not yet set an expiration date for it. So it's not currently included with the other orders that are on a scheduled sunset or termination.
That's promising.
Yeah. So again, I don't know. It seems to me like this is the kind of thing that merits a phone call.
Yeah.
To add us to the likely bin of other similar public bodies that are, probably making noises about, hey, can we keep doing this, and what would that look like? Because it would be better to have that conversation before the governor comes out in public and says, hey, this is sunsetting, and then he has to walk that back, which he's not going to want to do.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that unless anyone has any concerns about that.
I bless you.
No, it would be considered another amendment to the motion. So we would continue through the end of the year unless an order expires, an emergency order expires, and to take any action that may be available through the legislature for continuing.
And the governor.
Yeah.
Well, as the original maker of the motion, I'll accept the modifications as suggested.
Thank you.
Well,
I don't want us to do anything illegal, obviously. That
No,
would
no,
be-
no, it's not illegal. I don't, actually, I don't think this requires a vote. It's just like guidance from the commission to me that I should let the governor's office know that we've had good experience with this format of meetings and we'd like to continue it through the end of the year.
I think that would be beneficial.
So Barbara, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to mention the idea was floated earlier that, that there might be interest in perhaps developing legislation that would change the meeting procedures by statute. There are already various bills tinkering with meeting procedures for, local agencies and state agencies and this and that. And I have not kept tabs on the details. We do, we are sort of watching a bit with those bills. Nothing, as far as I know, has been enacted yet. But the bills, there are some bills out there already on the subject.
Alex, we have a project for you. Make sure that you keep this this particular item on your COVID watch list.
Okay. So to continue with the legislative program, the CID meeting bill was approved on the 22nd, and SB 315 Roth, the bill on revocable transfer on death deeds, was also approved by Assembly Judice on 6/22. That one's going to appropriations next, but I don't think there'll be a problem with that. The only cost is the fact that we'll be doing a follow-up study. And I've already let people know that that would be an absorbable cost. So I don't think there's going to be a problem in appropriation. So those are going quite well. And then there is a supplement to the memorandum that I'm going to let Barbara present.
Okay, so the supplement relates to the two bills on recodification of the California Public Records Act. Those bills are going smoothly so far. They're scheduled to be heard in the Senate Judiciary Committee next week. If they make it through that committee, and I have no reason at this point to think that they won't, then they will be probably referred to the Appropriations Committee, because they did have to go through appropriations in the Assembly, and I assume the same will happen in the Senate. The supplement that was prepared on these bills discusses various revisions of the comments to the proposed recodification and the conforming revisions. And I would just ask the commission whether those comment revisions are acceptable.
We're good.
Um,
Yeah, Victor, you're good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think that's really the only question on this particular memo, lumping all those comment revisions together, and that's it.
And that's all we have on the legislative program.
Well, I guess the other thing to mention is there is also the bill on the trial court restructuring reforms. That bill is also going well, and it's been in each house. It's been double referred to two policy committees. It has been through its first policy committee in the second house already. So the last of the four, that hearing is scheduled for next week as well. And again, we are not anticipating any problems with it.
Good, thank you. I like the way you lumped or put everything together too. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, Barbara. All right, then we'll move forward with, and thank you for the bird sounds too. It's very peaceful.
Yeah, there's also a chainsaw down the way, but
I haven't heard that. All right, we'll go to item number 5, Fish and Game Law.
Okay, that's mine to start anyway. Good morning, everyone. So under the heading, we have first item listed is phase 1 public comment. We have a memorandum and a supplement to that memorandum. These are 2 more sets of reviews of textual changes to the existing Fish and Game Code that the commission has been looking at. They were proposed by the commission in a tentative recommendation some time ago, and we have now received welcome comment on those proposed changes from the Fish and Game Commission and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And the commission has been analyzing these proposed changes pursuant to a methodology that it agreed on a few meetings ago, in which the proposed changes are all put in various categories, and for the most part, the categories are treated as consent items. So typically we go through this pretty quickly. I am hoping that certainly everyone has read the memo and the supplement, and I will just go through. We'll start with the main memo, and I will go through each category, and then I will just ask if anyone has any concerns or questions or objections to treating the items in the category the way the staff has proposed to treat them. Starting with memorandum 2021-26, we have the first category, and this will be the same in the supplement as well, are various changes that the staff recommends should be made. And this is because we've received support on making these changes from either one or both of the two agencies, and either has objected to the changes. So let's make sure we're all in the same place here. Starts on page 2 of the main memorandum. Any comments, questions, concerns about anything in that category? Great.
Well, hold, please. Wendy Bogdan, General Counsel at Fish and Wildlife, has raised her hand.
Okay.
And I think it'd be appropriate to let her speak at this time, if that's all right with the chair.
No,
Okay, I'm going to enable that. Okay, Ms. Bogdan, there you go.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Listen, I just want to make sure that that we're appropriately providing input, Steve, to all of your good work. Would as you are about poised to sort of run through those items, I just wanted to note, having had a chance to go through them from the last time we spoke with you, that for 2021-26, we do support the changes, so thank you very much. And then for 2021-26, the first supplement, we've not analyzed that one. And then also just wanted to note for 2021-27, that's useful, and we really appreciate you all doing that. That's very helpful.
thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments. So to be clear here, so in the main memo, the first category, which is changes that should be made, the reason the staff is proposing that these changes be accepted are based on comments we've already received from the two entities. And Wendy, thank you for your comments. And I understand that certainly we want you to have an opportunity to step in and say whatever you want to say, even after making those initial comments. But I just wanted to be clear for the commission that we're not proposing that any change be accepted unless we've already received some comment from the two entities, Fish and Game Commission, Department of Fish and Wildlife, supporting the changes. There are categories in which we have either not received comment one way or another, or the comment is such that we feel that further input is needed. And those are not being proposed for approval in the memo or in the supplement. So Wendy, there will be another opportunity. There's a large category in both the memo and the supplement in which we indicate these are changes where we feel further input is needed, because we're not completely clear. And so we're going to be getting with you to further discuss, assuming the commission approves that.
And Steve, I now see a hand from Angela Donlan, who's another counsel at Fish and Wildlife. With the chair's permission, I'll let her speak. Okay. Okay, you're live. I don't remember your voice being quite that high.
Oh no, I have not heard that before.
No, I wonder what happened.
I hope that wasn't a filter that your child left on or something. Angela, your audio was comically unintelligible. So maybe you want to try reestablishing your connection. Yeah.
Okay, she's, she'll come back.
Okay, well,
And let me just remark that this is for General Counsel Bogdan. We appreciate the feedback at this meeting. That's helpful, and that will be taken into account in how we frame the materials the next time they're presented in a memo. But I think we're probably still going to stick to our practice of, items that are provisionally approved for presentation in a future meeting. Even with your assent at a meeting, I think we'll probably stick to that same method to be sure that everyone involved has the same opportunity to comment on it, and Fish and Game Commission or trade groups or whatever. So it's very helpful. You can also do it between meetings, either way. So I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
no.
I will,
But you know what? Angela Donlin is back on the call or the list, but okay.
and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Hi, is it any better?
We hear you.
Yes.
You sounded like Minnie Mouse before.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you didn't have any control over that.
It will be on the video, I assume, so you can go back and watch it.
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify, Steve, that yes, I understand that you are putting in the memo things that we have previously formally commented on and expressed support for. And Wendy's comments today are just a reflection of the fact that we're trying, as each memo comes out, to go through it and just explain, make sure that we agree with the characterization of our comments in each memo. And so we've done that with 2021-20 that you guys have already approved. We've done that with 2021-26, which you're considering today. We have not yet done that with 2021-26 first supplement. So I hope by the next meeting that we'll have something to say about that one.
Right. Well, that's great. And just again, to be clear with the commission, so we have this whole process, which is, I think, very interesting and hopefully will work very well. So this first category that we're looking at in the memo, and there'll be a similar category in the supplement, which is changes that should be made, and which I've asked about whether there's any objections. Those will, assuming the commission has no problem, and assuming no one in the audience raises some issue here at the meeting, those will go into a cumulative draft, which you have here is 2021-27. That's just a document which is largely for reference, but even that document has not yet been finally approved at all. And so for Ms. Bogdan and Ms. Donlin, there's going to be an opportunity to review that document as well. Even if something goes in from one of the memos that are presenting these changes into that cumulative draft, there will still be an opportunity to potentially comment on those. And the only thing that's going in there are changes that either are in the first category of each, the memo and the supplement, or are then changes that have somehow been clarified when we've talked between meetings. So there'll be lots of opportunity for you to comment, and then that will be again presented to the commission.
Yeah,
We really appreciate that. We're just, we just also are aware that it seems like, this process has worked best when it is a conversation with regular opportunities to touch base. And so we appreciate the opportunity and your commitment to sort of wait to make sure that we've confirmed that we agree with your characterization. So thank you for that.
Great. All right, thank you. So I did not see any questions about this first category in the main memo, 21-26. And I'm assuming from what we heard from Ms. Donlin and Ms. Bogdan that there were no clarifications of their comments. So moving on to the next section, which is, let's see, it's on the middle of page 8. These are changes that should not be made. This is category in which the commission proposed a change and one or both of the commenting entities were opposed to the change, and the staff has reviewed that unless there was some significant reason the staff sought to dispute the contention of the two entities. The staff is proposing that those changes not be made. In this case, we have only one item in the main memo. Any comments, questions, concerns? Okay, seeing none. The next category at the bottom of page 8, changes that should presumptively be made. These are changes that probably are going to be okay with the two entities, but we haven't received confirmation as strong as we did for the first category. An example might be a situation where one or both of the entities indicates that they see that the change would not would not create a substantive change in the law, but that's not necessarily saying that they welcome having the change made. So these are items that we will talk to the two entities about, or wait to hear further comment from them before they go into the cumulative draft. Anyone have any comments, concerns, questions about anything in this category? This is a fairly long category. It goes all the way through page 11. Seeing none, now we're at the category labeled further input required. These are proposed changes where there's more significant need to have discussion. There's not clearly opposition, but there's some problem that clearly we need to talk about with the two entities in order to get a resolution. Either we're not understanding the comment, or a comment has not addressed all of the proposed change, something along those lines. And again, we've sort of summarized why these items are in this category. Any questions, concerns about anything in this category? Okay. Then on the middle of page 14, we have a category called no further action recommended. This is a category in which we proposed a change, and basically we were advised that, and based on what we understood, that there was not really a good reason to make the change. In other words, this is a sort of a second look. It's not necessarily opposition, but it's like, there's no reason to do this. It's not going to be beneficial. And so there are few items go in this category. Again, any questions, comments? So Ms. Donlin and Ms. Bogdan, I'm seeing hands up. Does that, I can't tell whether those are left over from before.
Mine's a relic hand. Apologies.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Both of them are gone.
Okay, thank you. And then the last category, purely informational matters. These were not really proposed changes. This is just for completeness. We had notes in the tentative recommendation in some places where we either pointed some things out, or there was just some comment in there, but did not necessarily require any change to the statutory language. And so we're just listing these here in case you're going down the list of all the notes, both the entities as well as the commissioners, to know what happened. And so then at the end of this memo, and then also, as you see, also at the end of the supplement, we have this chart that we prepared. I have a cumulative chart which has all the comments, but these are the comments that were received on all the sections that are covered by the memo, or would be covered by the supplement, and it has the responses from the Fish and Game Commission and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Okay, so I guess I'll just ask, because maybe I went through that a little bit too quickly. I guess what I really need is approval for the changes that should be made, which was the first category that we presented. The commission okay with including those proposed changes in the cumulative draft?
Yes.
All right, I'm seeing no problem with that. I don't think we need a formal motion for it, unless, Brian, unless you think we need one.
No, I think we already have assent on the content of the memo.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you. So now we're on to the supplement. And this is a supplement only because we had a longer interval. So we thought it would be easier to present you with a sort of two series of these comments and reviews of the comments, rather than just put them all in one long document. And that way there's an opportunity to review them earlier in the meeting cycle rather than later.
And this one, if I'm remembering correctly, the categories are the same, right? In
Yes,
terms
that is
of their
correct.
character. So we could probably just move quickly through whether there are commissioner concerns about
Yes,
each.
I think that's fine. And I guess Ms. Donlin and Ms. Bogdan have both indicated they have not had an opportunity to review this, so they wouldn't have any additional comments, I assume. But once again, if the items that are in the category called changes that should be made are approved, then they would go into the cumulative draft, but there would still be another opportunity to review. I see Ms. Bogdan with a hand up.
And you,
Yeah, so it was my understanding that our process was that we would have an opportunity to just confirm the characterization, your characterization of our comments before anything would be forwarded into the cumulative draft. So it would be my request that that you hold these until we have a chance to do that. That would be my preference. I understand if that just isn't feasible, but I had understood that that was our process.
well, I assume that that's fine. I don't think when we created the process, we were expecting that you would have comments ready when the memos were ready. And that it would be okay for your comments to follow our discussion. So if in fact you believe we mischaracterized your position in a way that would change our understanding of an issue, we could always pull it off the cumulative. Nothing's written in even sand yet. So I think it's fine if the commission agrees that, well, I mean, I sort of just hate to drag this out. And so maybe I could ask whether it would be all right for your agency if we were to proceed as we were expecting to. And so if something looks like it's got support, we would put it in the cumulative draft as provisionally approved, subject to re-examination if you believe that we have misjudged your position. Because that way we can just proceed with these things and we don't have to bring them back yet again for another memo's presentation simply to say, and the department doesn't disagree with our understanding of their comments.
Or we just say that the department hasn't had an opportunity, or we're waiting on comment like we normally do. We don't always have to say that the different stakeholders have approved or not approved yet. I mean, that's not how we don't require consent before we.
Sure.
And I guess I just want to be clear that the cumulative draft is really, as Brian is indicating, it's really just proposed at this point, and we would hope that everyone, the commissioners as well as the two entities, would be reviewing the cumulative draft. And if you see something in there that is a problem, I would think the commission would want to know about it, and we would want to address it. Eventually we will present that for a final decision by the commission, but we're not there yet. So you would have an opportunity, even if we put these items from this first category into the cumulative draft, for you to review that along with all the other items that are in the cumulative draft, and just let us know.
Yeah, we go back sometimes. Stakeholders will look at something sometimes and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch this from like 2 years ago." And then we have several studies that people will take a look at and comment on, write a letter, attend a meeting, or just pick up the phone and talk to either Brian or whoever the attorney is assigned to the study, and just talk to them, voice their concerns, and then we report back at the next meeting. These are intended to be we have long and year-long relationships with the stakeholders, so we understand that people don't get opportunities to read and review and comment before each meeting. We know that. The commissioners aren't even doing that. So I just hang in there with our process. I recognize that you guys have, and I say you guys, and Wendy and Angela, you kind of just came in, and I'm thrilled because Steve has been working on this for years and with different commissioners, I mean, and different governors even. So we appreciate the comments, but I think, you know, it's just continue and hang in there with the process, familiarize yourself with it, and we welcome your comments at any stage. And our drafts are by no means ever rubber stamped as the law. They even then go through further review at the legislative level. So this is a long
Yeah.
process.
I really appreciate that. And just so that you know, Angela and I have been on this, you know, since the beginning. So we've got up to a decade now of experience with this this effort. I think my concern, and I appreciate very much all that you're saying, and it is really helpful, is that just as the cumulative draft accumulates, it starts to present just the scale of it will start to present challenges, workload challenges for us to track and respond. And I also don't want you to be frustrated by, you know, at some point there then being a long delay as we try to get our heads around what is, you know, a growing cumulative draft, that just the time that it will take. So if that's all understood, that time will need to pass, then I'm fine with this approach.
I have one minor process suggestion that I think will make things flow more easily, which is that in the cumulative draft memo that Steve prepared for this meeting, we included a table that shows sort of the open items, the issues on which we're still hoping to receive public comment before proceeding. We could include within that table in the future items that were added, that were provisionally approved for inclusion in the cumulative draft itself. We could include those items as items where we're still hoping to receive confirmation from the department or the Fish and Game Commission that we correctly construed their comments. So as we receive that kind of feedback, those items would come off of that table. Everything that where we've received the necessary input would come off of the table, and only those items where we're still waiting for some kind of response, or we expect there might be a response, would those still be on the table. And that would, you know, provide sort of a punch list that the department, Fish and Game Commission, other interested groups could use to keep track of open items.
I think some tool like that could be really helpful, and maybe Angela and I can have an offline about like the best way to format it. Angela, does that work for you?
Yes, that works. I think also the fact that Steve is putting out separate memos for each set of items that are going before your commission. So, I mean, he's already building in some redundancy by doing an individual memo and a cumulative draft. So the fact that these individual memos are coming through makes it pretty easy for us to track what we have reviewed and what we have not reviewed. If we wanted to add another column to the cumulative draft, I think that would just be gravy for us. So thank you for doing that this way, Steve.
Okay, well, you're welcome. And to clarify, so we can add that to the attachment to the cumulative draft. There would be a third category. Right now we have two categories: changes that presumptively should be approved and changes where we need further input.
Steve, let's not make that a decision at this meeting. I think the suggestion from the council, from the department, is a good one. We'll just work offline with them to perfect the way that we can present that information that would be most helpful to them. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Yes.
And you know, given the consent posture of the items in your memo, maybe we could just move quickly through each category and get the commissioners an opportunity and the public an opportunity to raise any concerns, and otherwise bless them, because I don't expect there to be a need for much discussion.
No, I think that's fine. And I just wanted to point out there's I saw a typo that we missed before the memo went out. The top of page 11 in the comment, the section number is not properly stated and needs to be changed to read subdivision C of section 7850 rather than 780. Other than that, so I'll just ask if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns with anything that's in the memo in any of the categories. Seeing none, how about Ms. Donlin or Ms. Bogdan? I know you haven't looked at this, so, okay. All right, then, so we will proceed as we've indicated in the methodology, and we will continue to bring these to you. The next document is really a reference document, and the cumulative draft we've talked about already. This is Memorandum 2021-27. Again, this includes only the changes from category 1 in each of the memos that are presented to you, and again is subject to being changed or being pulled out if we get some comment along those lines. And then attached to that, as Brian has discussed, is a sort of a checklist of the sections corresponding to changes that we're still waiting to hear, and we need further input from the entities. Any questions or concerns about that document? No decision is needed about that document, but okay. Thank you very much then.
So there's one other memo for this general topic. It's Memorandum 2133. And this presents a letter that we received from Charlton Bonham, who's the Executive Director of the Fish and Wildlife, Department of Fish and Wildlife. And as the memo very briefly recites, the decision was made earlier in this study to bifurcate public comment into 2 phases. And phase 1 would be the kind of thing that we were just working on with Steve, where we're looking at changes, mostly technical changes that can be made in place and that stand on their own, are severable. And we have many of those, and we're going to be working on that for months. And phase 2, which is comment on reorganization, breaking sections into pieces, moving the pieces around, and as proposed in the tentative recommendation, that would be done through the creation of an entirely new code, Fish and Wildlife Code. So Mr. Bonham wrote us a letter expressing his department's views on phase 2 in fairly broad brush terms. And my suggestion in the memo is that I think it would be premature for us to engage in the merits of his suggestion, because when we did the bifurcation, we postponed as well the comment periods, and the comments on the comment period for phase 2 continues to run until next January. And I think it would be premature to make any kind of a substantive decision on phase 2 while there's still 6 months left in the formally announced comment period. I think it would be procedurally unfair to other interested people not to have a chance to share their views before we start to make decisions that might wind up being fairly permanent ones. So that's by way of sort of introducing the letter, and just my gloss on it is thank you for the letter. I appreciate the comment you've provided, but my recommendation to the commission would be that we hold it until next January and then bring it back and address its merits at that time.
Great. I think everyone.
I do see a hand up from Ms. Bogdan.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all, so much. Again, participating in the last few of these meetings has really helped me understand even more your process. And as I think we've said in conversations with Brian offline and also to you, we've just been reflecting deeply on this process and the recodification, proposed recodification. So I think the letter speaks for itself. as to our position and our decision, and we're rolling out with that messaging to our folks in our community. So thank you for hearing that.
Is every commissioner okay with the notion of holding this until the comment period runs?
Everyone's nodding, yeah.
Any contrary views or abstentions? Seeing none, I'll record that as a decision. Thank you. And that completes that agenda item.